Hi guys, and welcome to our next video. And now here this is going to be theoretical video again, and I'm going to explain to you some of the arts of cracking password, what it means and how it's done, and of course why do we need to know that as a white hat hackers. So basically let's start off with a brief overview about what we're going to cover today. So the first option is brute forcing and the second option is social engineering. So let's just cover first why do we need to basically know that, and when does it come to useful information, when can this be useful. So basically we as penetration testers often should be basically prompted out with some hacking password tasks. It can be brute force in a simple FTP server, it can be brute force in a web server, it can brute force an SSH server, which is not that easy job. We can go to a task or engagement when do we need to basically brute force some services or find a password for some specific services and accounts. So we have to need how we can do that, and there can also be like files that are locked, and we can, for example, use tools like John the Ripper to hack the password, to crack the password and unlock the zip file, unlock the files there, and so on. So in all the cases we should know how the cracking password attacks are working, and we should know how we can implement one by ourselves. So let's just start with the brute forcing one. I'm gonna explain everything you need to know about brute forcing, what it is, and of course how we can implement that, what's the weakness and what's the advantage of that. So basically the brute forcing is an attack when you are forcing your machine to try a different set of combinations throughout some service. Let's say you have some FTP service, and that FTP service basically needs a password for a specific user. You've enumerated the user, one of the users, and you want to break his password or her password. So brute forcing is a process when basically you force your machine to try every single combination it stored, or you stored in a custom word list called dictionary. So basically your machine is trying every single combination. If it has success, you got the password. So you see, that's really simple and stupid attack, but sometimes it's working. Well, nowadays most of the services are protected against such attacks, so-called broken authentication, or was top 10 broken authentication, but there are many services that are really not, because it's really easy nowadays to do with such an attack. You just need to basically set up a firewall IDS IPS which can track all the attempts for login, and if the attempts count is getting higher than specific number you've hard-coded, that means that this most likely a brute force attack. So you see, the attack is simple, the way to deal with the attack is simple, but nowadays there are a lot of services and a lot of basically technologies that has misconfigured their option of tracking login attempts. So basically by using brute force you can get the login password, the user's password, and make your way in. A good example of cracking password was the air crack one, when we cracked the wireless password using air crack. So you saw that we needed to gather a handshake, and with that handshake we were able to basically throw every single combination we stored in dictionary, and therefore we were able to basically crack the password of a wireless network. So when it comes to password, the principle is quite the same. There are different password encryption mechanism, there are hash, there are RSA and so on, but it all comes to time mathematical calculations if we are not using dictionaries, and if we are, it all goes to good dictionary or word list. For example, hashes are cracked with so-called rainbow tables. Hash is a function which is one way, straightforward, and it cannot go back, but using the rainbow tables we can guess what was hashed, because the hash is unique. So you see, no matter of what password are there or the encryption algorithm, it all comes to mathematics, time consuming, and of course good dictionary if they are any, because the rainbow tables, we can count them as a dictionary as well. So the brute force attack can not only work with dictionary but different set of characters. Let's say you can define a brute force into a different set of characters and it's making all the possible combinations within that range, which is kinda nice. And it can work with the dictionary when we store different passphrases and it throws any single passphrase out there. So basically you can imagine how time consuming it can be, since it needs to try any single password out there, like literally any single password. But the good thing is that if, for example, your password is in the dictionary, it will get cracked no matter what time it consumes. So what's the problem here? Let's take, for example, this long password. So this is something like nowadays usual password for some services. It can be for FTP, for SSH, for the web server, for the control panel. These are some nowadays passwords. They are saved in password vaults like LastPass, and they are drained from there. So imagine how much time, just try to imagine how much time does the brute force tool needs to crack such password. You see, having this password in your dictionary is kinda impossible because you need to match any single character out there. But you see, we have small and capital letters, we have numbers, we have different symbols, and this making the cracking procedure really hard. And besides that, we also have the protection of IDS firewall, which tracks the login attempt. So you see, like strongly configured nowadays machine is kinda impossible to break using brute force. So you can imagine this gonna take eternity to your brute force tool to basically crack down such a huge password. So that's the weakness of such an attacks and such an approach, because this can take really long time. Yeah, it will break. I'm not saying it's not gonna break. It will break, but it's gonna take eternity, like decades. Like we will be not even alive when our machine is basically breaking that combination. So besides that, when the quantum computers come up, they can basically break such passwords within hours. And that's why they are using different technology. They are using quarks, they are using quantum mechanics, and basically with one set of quarks they can make dozens of combinations. So basically they are capable of breaking such passwords, but our machine, no matter how powerful they are, they're gonna take eternity to break such password, because you see, the brute forcing tool is gonna need to try any single combination with every single symbol to get the exact same one. You know, it's gonna take a lot of time. But besides that, let's talk about some tools for brute forcing and for password cracking. So that's the brief idea of password cracking. We have the password, we don't know the password, and we can try the hard way by trying every single combination that we can. And if that combination matches the password, we have access and we are ready. So that's the point and art of password cracking, like one of the part. So the tools that I like and mostly use are the Hydra one, John the Ripper, Python of course, and of course many more. So what I mean by Python, let's just break down all these two and explain what they do and why. So basically the THC Hydra is a great tool for brute forcing. Of course, it has a lot of capabilities for brute forcing a lot of services. Like it can go straightly direct to web servers, HTTP services, like FTP services, SSH services, SMTP, and so on. It really can go over there and try to break almost anything. For example, when you are focusing on a web service and you want to brute force in the post method, you need to specify different fields with different parameters, so the tool is gonna know where to pass the argument, where to pass the word with, so on. It can also have options for applying user with, so we have set of users, set of passwords, and try every single one of them with every single one with the other, and you know it's gonna take a lot of time. My machine now is doing over 5k combinations per second, and you know it's much, but really it's not, because it really takes eternity. There are more than enough combinations. So THC Header is basically a tool for online attacking, like wife attacking for real services. It can go there and brute force passwords of such services. While John the Ripper is basically a tool for offline password cracking. It can crack passwords such as zip files, locked files, folders, and so on. So basically this tool is more like a passive password cracking. And it can go over hashes and so on. You're gonna see that in future. And now we have the Python. And why Python? As I said before, Python is one of the languages that is going to get more and more used in penetration testing, since it has a lot of ability and opportunities. There are libraries for almost anything, and Python itself can do almost anything. Like we can just literally call a tool that tries different combination throughout different services on different port. Isn't that brute forcing? So you see, Python is really great. It can be used for exploits, it can be used for writing DDoS, brute forcing tool, it can be used for many things, and that's why I like to include Python here, since it can really do miracles. And of course, keep in mind that most of the tools are connected to Python. Python can connect to web servers, Python can connect and pass parameters to web pages specific fields like the name and the password. You just need to go there, inspect elements, and see which one to pass. And Python can do really a lot of things. So the next thing I want to talk about is social engineering and why it's so important. So basically, we were discussing the hard way for now. We were talking about rubbing our head against the wall, but why do that when a simple human being can give you the password the easy way? So that's the point of social engineering attacks. Why you need to go the hard way when you can go the easy way? Why you have to spend eternity waiting for that password to crack when you can spoof email, go there and grab your password from another human being? So that's the point I want to make, that nowadays the people are easier to hack than the machines. As I've mentioned before, most of the machines and services nowadays has strong password, has some kind of protection against multiple login attempts, and has some kind of IDS, IPS, which stands there and watches over the security. Because as I said, my machine, for example, is doing 5k combination at once, and imagine no human being can do 5,000 combination per second. So if an IDS sees such a huge number for login attempts, it's gonna immediately block the connection. The IDS is gonna warn us. The IP is gonna immediately block the connection, and it's gonna know that this is a brute force attack, since no human being can do such a huge number of combinations at once. So most of the tools has options for basically limiting the speed, so we can play around with different speeds, so we can evade IDS, IPS. But imagine when you try 500 combination per second, well, it's gonna take eternity. And even that you can get spoofed or tracked. So social engineering is always the easiest way out there, because no matter how much security there are, no matter how much IDS, IPS, and so on are watching over the whole network, if a stupid user or employee sends your password through email, nothing ever is gonna block that. So you're gonna have the password, and since you have the password, you're gonna have a legitimate access, since you are a legitimate user or employee and so on, and you can do your job. So one of the most crucial abilities or skills that you need to develop when you are a penetration tester is to hacking people, or in other words, to be a social engineer. And the cool thing about that is these do not require so much technical skills, but besides that requires so much creativity. You need to be able to successfully spoof in any kind of situation. You need to be able to spoof your email, your phone calls, messages, identity, and many more things. You just basically need to be able to spoof anything out there, because that's how social engineering is working. So basically, this was always the easiest way. Let's say when you're doing phishing pages, we are forcing and tricking the user into giving his own credential by himself. If the user did not basically enter their credentials there, we would not get anything. So he's intentionally giving his or her credentials. Social engineering attacks are always the easiest one, and they require the most creativity, but they are working and they will never stop working, because there is no machine against social engineering attacks. Machines are there running instructions, running set of rules which basically determine their actions. You cannot basically program an AI to protect against social engineering, because when the AI starts to think, hacker is gonna start to think, and they're gonna basically spoof the AI as well. So my opinion is that no protection against social engineering is going to ever happen. Yes, there are some IDS and IPS rules for spoofing emails, for fake pages and so on, but as I said, if the white hat hacker or penetration tester is such creative one, he can bypass such technologies. And of course, this attack is toward users, so no machine can save your ass. Okay guys, I thank you for watching. This was today's video about password cracking. I've explained what's password cracking. There are multiple ways you can do that. There are multiple tools with which you can do that, and we're gonna see that in the practical video. I hope it was interesting for you, and keep in mind that when you have the opportunity, always go for the social engineering attacks, because they are the most useful one. Let's say you want to break into some cafe's wireless network and own the network, but instead of waiting like an hour, you go there and ask the waiter or the bartender for the wireless network. He's not gonna ever know that you want to own the whole network and collect all the data from all the clients, and he's gonna give you the password the easy way. So you are not going to wait an hour, you are not going to wait anything, you just go there, spoof yourself, ask for the password, and they will give it to you. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Hacking people is more easy than hacking machines, because as I said, even the smallest and stupidest router, if it has like a not that stupid password, it can take hours to break, let's say using aircrack. And time is precious, so you don't have to wait hours, you just go there, ask the waiter, and he or she is gonna give you the password. Simple as that. When we're talking about engagement and enterprise businesses, the principle is quite the same. You ask the client, you ask the employee, like from different name of course. You are not showing your intentions to the waiter of course. So you're asking the employee or some client or so on, and he or she is gonna give you the password. Of course, you're not asking directly, you need to basically think of some kind of scenario. So guys, thank you everyone for watching, stay tuned, and see you again in the practical videos. Bye.